Good afternoon. My name is Anthony Moreau. I'm a director of the YMP Toronto and also director of the YMP Scholarship Fund. This is something that's very near and dear to my heart. In 3 years, the YMP Toronto, along with key sponsors such as Alamos Gold, have managed to grow the scholarship bursary from $12,000 to $120,000, which we're giving away in 2021. With me, I have John McLuskey. John is the CEO of Alamos Gold, and Alamos Gold this year decided to participate in the YMP Scholarship Fund. They're giving away two $5,000 scholarships, one for financial need and one for Northwestern Ontario. I'd like to thank John very much for participating in this interview. One of the points of this interview is for the leaders to talk about why they participated in the YMP Scholarship Fund, and also let the public and the young miners out there get to know the leaders a little bit more. John's a very dynamic individual, and thank you very much for joining, John.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
So, John, thank you very much for yourself and Alamos deciding to join the YMP Scholarship Fund. Just tell us, why did you do it?
Well, we think it's a very good idea, and certainly we commend YMP for the effort you've put in and the pace at which you've grown it. You've done a great job. We've been hiring students and promoting the mining profession through various education outreaches for a long time. And I think if you don't do that, I don't believe you're going to create the interest in the profession or the various professions involved in the industry among young people. So I think it's part of the industry's job to make sure that students are aware of the opportunities. I don't think it's absolutely necessary. I think when you're a student, you should be learning. That's what they say, life's for learning. And clearly, if you're interested in the industry, if you know that's the direction you want to go, I think it's a great idea to try to get summer work as part of a mining company, work at a mine, work at an exploration site. I think that relevant experience is as much for your benefit, for the students' benefit, in other words, to see if they really enjoy the work involved, as much as it is a benefit for the company to bring young people in and benefit from their energy and enthusiasm and their thirst for learning.
So, John, we're gonna have a bit of a speed round here. I want people to get to know you a little bit better, and let's just jump into COVID. People are getting some new hobbies. Some people are playing chess. I think there's that new chess movie that was out. People are going for walks. People are working out more. People are cooking sourdough bread. What are you doing that's a little bit different?
Definitely been getting more exercise. I live right here, but my house backs right onto the ravine, and so I'm able to get out pretty much every day and go for walks in the ravine. I generally walk over an hour a day, and that keeps me in pretty good shape.
Now, John, what's great about mining, I always tell people, you get to travel the world, you get to go to amazing cities, not only just the cities that you have operations in nearby, but also on the conference tours, talking to institutional investors. You've been to cities all over the world. Can you tell us what your favorite city is that you've traveled to, that you visited?
Just over 10 years ago, I went to Istanbul for the first time, and that is an absolutely magnificent city. And I would certainly encourage anyone who loves to travel to get to Istanbul at some point. They won't be disappointed.
So, John, another random question. Again, been to cities all over the world. Everybody likes food. What's the best meal you've ever had?
Well, it's there's actually a seafood place in the old town of Istanbul that probably serves the best fish, no matter which fish you order. They serve about the best prepared fish of any restaurant I've ever been to. And I grew up in Vancouver, so we know seafood in Vancouver, but there's something absolutely amazing about the way that place prepares fish. So that sticks very much in my mind. But really, the best meal you're ever going to have is the one you eat when you're terribly hungry. And I can remember being stuck for about 16 hours in a fairly remote location without any food. And when we finally made it back to where we could get something to eat, I don't think I ate anything particularly remarkable. I think, in fact, it was bacon and eggs and baked beans and so on. And I'll tell you that was one of the best meals I've ever had.
So, John, a little scary here. Again, you go to remote places. Is there any situation that you've got into that maybe got a little hairy, maybe a little bit frightening for you? Can you tell us about it?
Well, the only thing I can think of is I was up in Alaska. We were exploring in the foothills belt, and it was a very, very remote site that you could only access by helicopter. And we were making our way out of there, and the helicopter malfunctioned and it went straight down. It was kind of it was, like a controlled crash. When it hit the ground, it hit pretty hard. And I must admit, my heart was beating pretty rapidly as that helicopter plummeted to the ground. I've been in a couple of 4x4s that have been making their way down mountain tracks that have slid a little too far for my comfort, but eventually they caught traction again, and we were back on the go. When we were first going into Mulatos, we were driving along roads that were like monkey trails, and if you looked out the window over the side, the road probably had a 1,500-foot drop. So we were really grateful that the fellow at the wheel really knew the road well and knew what he was doing.
So, John, last random question, I promise you. I talked about food. I talked about cities. Now let me talk about animals. Everyone has a pet. You've been to a lot of crazy cities. People have been in the jungle. What's the most interesting animal you've ever seen? For example, when I was in Suriname, I saw a giant anteater. And to me, it looked like a long bear that's crawling that hadn't been fed for 5 weeks. Maybe tell us something that you saw that was pretty interesting that you want to share with the listeners and viewers.
Pretty much everything I've seen, I guess I've seen stranger things in photographs or in David Attenborough.
Okay.
But I have been, I remember being incredibly impressed by when I was in the southern part of Venezuela at one point. We were driving along these roads, and the trees were practically green and red. They were so full of parrots, and when they all took off in flight at once, it was one of the most spectacular sights I've ever seen. That was pretty impressive. Also in that same location, I can remember the noise of the howler monkeys. They were deafening, and when I was told that what I was hearing was probably a monkey that was 2 to 3 miles away, I could hardly believe it, that it was one of the loudest things I've ever heard. Anyway, other than that, I can't say anything. I've seen anything too impressive in terms of a a specific mining related trip. I was with a bunch of mining CEOs on a fishing trip once in the northern part of Haida Gwaii, off the coast of British Columbia. It used to be known as the Queen Charlotte Islands, and we saw a whole group of humpback whales that were hunting herring, and they basically had corralled all the herring into a massive ball, and then they go deep and all swim up at the same time. It's the most spectacular sight you've ever seen. It's almost like a ballet. Suddenly, about 6 or 7 of these gigantic whales in a ring come up at once, and there was a photographer on that trip. And he snapped a photograph of it as it was happening. We were all watching it from maybe a few hundred meters away. The photographer snapped a photo of it, and it ended up that weekend on the cover of the Globe and Mail. So it was quite a spectacular to see, and fortunately it was immortalized.
John, back to some more relevant topics. You're in the gold mining business. You work for Alamos Gold. You actually run it. It's a great company. I would expect that you'd be bullish on gold. I'm wondering what your outtake is on the price of gold. Given the world's been just printing money, the markets are very frothy. I would expect it to go up. And how do you compare it to Bitcoin? Bitcoin from March 2020 till about a month and a half ago went up 1,600%, and in just a month it lost half of its value. So what's your outtake on the price of gold? Please share your opinion with the listeners and viewers.
I wouldn't say obviously, because there's been very long periods of time throughout my career when I was not bullish on gold. From the time I got into the industry in the early 80s until the early 2000s, gold was effectively in a bear market. And you had to survive with these very abbreviated bear market rallies. But gold went into a bull market phase around 2003, and it ran very strongly right through 2012. And it pulled back, and it pulled back quite precipitously until about 2018. And it's been in a recovery phase since then. And we're still in sort of a mid-stage correction of that recovery. It peaked at around 2100. It's I'm talking US now. It's pulled back currently around 1810 to 1825. I think gold does look like it's getting prepared to rally quite a bit further here, and I say that just because the very issues that created the original bull run in the early 2000s, those issues have not been resolved in any way. They are in fact getting worse, and I think those are the things that you can only, things like the massive debt, the massive amount of money creation that's been going on. So combination of heavy debt weighing on governments on the one hand, and huge money creation on the other hand, that effectively is devaluing currency. And that's why we're starting to see inflation. And ultimately, I think that is going to be reflected in a weaker US dollar. And the reciprocal of that is going to be a higher gold price.
Well, with mining, you get to see the world, you get to help the world, and you get to use those lessons to help grow the world. I think it's a great industry. You have leaders such as yourself, John, that are willing to speak to other young mining professionals. I think it's the best industry in the world. And we just want to spread the word through the YMP Toronto, YMP Global, and YMP Scholarship Fund. You have operations in Mexico, multiple operations in Ontario. You're a great leader, and we thank you for participating in this interview so people can get to know you a little bit better. And most of all, thank you very much for Alamos and yourself participating in the YMP Scholarship Fund, for giving away those two $5,000 scholarships. I really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thanks very much, John. Really appreciate it.